Good evening. Let's see. Welcome Angela and Latrice and Tasha and Sharon, Natasha, Anya, hey Amy, Carla, Katrina, Lay Pastor Paulette, Joelle, Constance, Brandell, Katrina. Welcome everyone on Facebook. Good to see you. That's right. You know how we do it. Take a moment and say hello to all the delegates. Find out who has the best seat in the house tonight. And let's see who's here on Periscope. I see Elder Lisa. It looks like Tamara. Hey, baby. Ebony, of course. Dr. Ursula. Hi. I hope you join us in September. Right around the corner. That got me red, thinking about you coming up here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, Okita. I see Deborah Johnson joining us. Matthew Jones. Minister Kareem. Hello, beloved Edmondson. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everyone jumping on tonight. We're going to talk for a little bit. I gave you an intro a couple weeks ago on relationships. They take a lot emotionally. I know they do. In fact, one of my counseling sessions that I had just today, I was talking with a young girl and I said, if we did things right, you know, in a perfect world, we would not even be in relationship in the condition that we're talking in right now. We wouldn't even be in relationship. What was that we were talking about? Emotional endurance. When our emotions are not strong enough, when our EQ is too low, we really shouldn't be in relationship, because relationships require accountability. And when you are not emotionally attuned, emotionally intelligent, it is very hard to keep relationship. And in fact, one of the biggest killers in relationships or career is emotional intelligence. So we have some work to do. That's right. Say hello to everyone. But I want to welcome you on tonight. And we had started a series, we just did the intro, the caveat, if you will, on how to know if your relationships are disappointing, occasionally disappointing, or if you are in a destructive relationship. And this is domestic, whether it's you're dating or married, whether it's you and your friends, whether you and some business associates, whatever it may be. You need to know the difference between, am I investing my time working through disappointments, because disappointments are going to happen, or am I actually in a destructive relationship and I've got to make some adjustments, draw some boundaries, and perhaps back my way out of this situation. It's important to know, and often we don't. I was just watching a program on TV, and a lady said to one other woman, you have enabled these behaviors for so long that in order for you to now change them and get them on the course they need to be on, you're going to have a lot of work to do, because what was once disappointing has now turned destructive. That puts us in a whole nother ball game. And again, this isn't just for dating or marriage relationships. You're going to hear me speak more specifically on marriages. But you will also hear me remind you, the listeners, that apply this to every part of your life, even with your adult children or even your childlike children. Is the relationship disappointing, which relationships can be and will be, or is it in fact destructive? So we talked last time about a couple weeks ago. I gave you a couple examples of a couple of characters that we talked about. One who was in a disappointing relationship, and there were some keys for her to start working on the relationship to get it to go in a better direction. And then there was one who was literally in a destructive relationship. You'll have to go back on and listen to my last detox on destructive or disappointing relationships. What we also called this, we coined this as to rate your relationships. Each relationship in your life, you can go ahead and rate them. And if you are in a D- relationship, this is definitely going to be for you. And if not, if you want to avoid getting in a D- relationship, this is going to be for you. I know a couple of friends was referring some of their friends to make an appointment for Soul Detox, or watch the videos to see what it was all about. And they were like, well, I never been an addict. I don't really have I didn't have a traumatic childhood, so it's Soul Detox isn't really for me. If that's what you got out of it, truthfully, then I must have done a poor job. Because that is truly not what it's all about. It's about the betterment of your life. It's about being counseled and coached into abundant life, the fulfillment of all that matters to you. That's what it's all about. So let's kick in tonight, because I know we don't have much time. We all going to church tomorrow, right? We all going to church tomorrow? All right. My little studio audience down here, 7-year-old says, yeah, we're all going to church tomorrow. So let's see. What is emotional abuse? Let's get to the point tonight. Yes, she said we're going to church. Very good. Make sure. I don't want to keep anybody up from going to church. So what we'll talk about is we all do hurtful things. We all do hurtful things. And we all do hurtful things at times to other people. We all make mistakes. And we all do or say things we regret. This has happened to a lot of us. How you define emotional abuse is what really makes the difference in how you quantify the relationship that you're in. This is the term for emotional abuse. Are you ready? Emotional abuse systematically degrades, diminishes, and can eventually destroy the personhood of the abused. Good morning. Good evening, Thomasina. Dr. Oaf, good evening to you. I praise God for these giants that are on here tonight. Emotional abuse systematically degrades, diminishes, and can eventually destroy the personhood of the abused. Emotional abuse will deteriorate your persona, your character, and you know that all comes from your soul. People describe emotional abuse as being far more painful and traumatic than physical abuse. For anyone that's been in an abusive situation, I've heard people say, men and women, that I would rather have been smacked than had to live with the words that were said to me in the years of this relationship with my mother, or with my siblings, or with this loved one that I was in relationship with. I would have rather been smacked instead of having to live with the words that are still going around in my soul over and over and over again. And it's worse than the actual physical hitting. Some people describe emotional abuse as being far more painful and traumatic than physical abuse. No one has to go too far to begin to read all about the reports we see on TV. There's a show that they're doing a series now on the newscasters and reporters who were taken hostage while reporting on the war in Iran and Iraq, and how they were taken in and taken under psychological warfare, and how painful it was for them to be able to understand that even though they were not fighting with a gun in their hand, they didn't have a weapon in their hand, all they had was a camera, that when they were taken hostage and became a kidnapped and a prisoner of war, that the prisoner effect of war began to take a massive degrading at their persona. Their personhood was attacked psychologically. In our church, we're doing a series on psychological warfare, and we talked about in the beginning. In the beginning was the word. In the beginning, in the garden, that beginning I'm referring to. The first attack was psychological. Eve was hit with psychological warfare. It was hit in her mind with a thought. So psychological warfare has been around for a long time. And now the media and social media outlets are using it as propaganda to work psychological warfare over us, especially believers. Believers, if I've ever told you anything, not only should we already understand that we are in a war, that from when Satan was kicked out of heaven to earth, the war began right then on earth. And that's why we have casualty to the war. That's why good people die. That's why bad things happen to good people, because we're in war, and we've been in war ever since. And now the war has stepped up to a different level where it systematically sets out a propaganda machine that psychologically comes against all of our beliefs, our value system, and challenges us in the things that maybe we are not so convinced of. We go to church, but we're really not convinced of Jesus Christ. You know, I believe that a woman should have a right to abortion, but I'm not so convinced of that. I believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, but I'm really not convinced of that. When psychological warfare comes, especially in the terms of propaganda, it's going to come against the things that you say you believe with your mouth, but really are not believing with your heart or your mind. And that's part of what emotional abuse does. Emotional abuse may not have a physical punch or slap. There may not be a weapon involved, but it is very demeaning, and it deteriorates the very soul, the very mind, will, emotions, hope, motivation of life. It can really cause you to be taken hostage into depression. Psychological warfare. And these prisoners of war who were taken in can tell you all about it, that they still have the effects of it today. PTSD is one known term that we all have heard about already. So you can go on TV anywhere and read reports of prisoners of war. And you can learn then how to begin to understand the traumatic effects. That's what happens with non-physical abuse. It's traumatic. It has trauma aspects to your life. Traumatic effects of psychological warfare using emotionally abusive tactics. Real stuff. When the abuse behavior is perpetrated by someone who promises to love you and cherish you, it is even more devastating and destructive. We can actually use the 3 Ds now, right? Disappointing, destructive, what was the other word? Or devastating. We've got 3 Ds now. So rate your relationships. Think about some of the people that you interact with day in and day out. Whether it be parental, whether it be your children, any of the domestic relationships, whether it be in your church, your business relationship, co-worker relationships, rate it, give it a grade. And there's a scoring system that I mentioned I'm going to give you. For all those who are really interested in learning more about this, there's an assessment I can send you out, and you can complete it, send it back into me, and we can talk about it, because it will grade the particular relationship or relationships that you fill out the assessment for, to find out, I know I love this person, but something's not right. I love this relationship with my guys or with my girls, but something's not right. I'm not growing. My creativity isn't happening. It's like I'm always the one giving. It's as if I don't have anything to give, or if I'm not the one to think of things to do, nothing is happening. Is it just disappointing? Do they have to be cut off because you're in a disappointing relationship? Or can it be talked out and boundaries be drawn? Or are you blatantly in a D- relationship where it is disappointing, it is destructive, and now it is devastating to yourself? You need to know that, because you are in charge of you. And the greatest lie that you can believe when it comes to yourself is, thank you for the super heart, Ebony Edwards 1. The greatest lie that you can buy into, that you can believe regarding yourself, is that you have no choice. I work earnestly with my clients and members of my church to tell them, stop saying you don't have a choice. There's always been a choice. There has always been a choice. Just give yourself enough credit to say, I'm making better choices. I know what you mean when you say that. What you're saying is, I choose to live better, so I don't have a choice. I chose to make this decision because of all that I've been through. I choose to make this decision because he or she left me. I have no choice. But you do have a choice. There's always a choice. But give yourself credit. Give yourself a little dap on the back, if you will, and say, I have choices and I'm choosing better. Now, it takes work. But when you buy into the mindset, when your mouth speaks something, believe me, if you said something that you're not convinced of, once you say it enough times, you're going to believe the lie that you say out of your own mouth. So get convinced of this very thing right now. You always have a choice. You just choose better. To render yourself powerless is the worst thing you can do to yourself. It's called the Popeye syndrome. I see people posting it on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all the time. It is what it is. I am what I am. That is a lie from the pit of hell. It is a lie. We should always be developing and bettering ourselves. Always moving and abiding The word of God is always moving and abiding. And when we move and abide in the word of God, change is going to happen to our lives. You know why? Because the perfect condition that we could have been developed, born into, we were not. Going back to the sins in the garden, of course. But I'm going to move on from there. When the abusive behavior is perpetrated by someone who promises to love and cherish you, it is even more devastating and destructive. Man, that's a horrible triangle to be in. Destructive behaviors and attitudes can sometimes be difficult to describe. That's why an emotionally destructive marriage is not usually diagnosed by looking at one single episode. I just went through this and I just can't take this. Usually it's not you can't take one thing. It's a continuous thing. It's been a cycle or patterns that's been going on that perhaps you've ignored more often than you'd like to admit in the beginning. But now the disappointment has turned to devastation, and now the devastation is blatantly destructive to your life. It's toxic. So that's when emotionally destructive relationships, or marriages in particular, is not usually diagnosed by looking at a single episode of sinful behavior, which we all are capable of, but rather repetitive attitudes and behaviors that result in tearing someone down or inhibiting their growth. I see this a lot in marriages. I have never known, if I had not experienced it myself, that there is such thing as maternal and marital jealousy, where one mother over a child, or one father over his son, or one spouse over the other can be jealous and will do all types of things to stop you from growing in education and higher education, in your career, in your marriage, or even in your spiritual relationship with God. You have to be very careful, because jealousy does not have a discriminatory factor. Jealousy doesn't care your race, your gender, your size, your education level. It doesn't care of your economic level. Jealousy is jealousy. And it can come from a mom to a daughter, father to a son, or children towards their parents. And it can also be in a marriage. And it is so tough, besides the fact that it's heartbreaking when you have a couple before you that you love, but you see this crab in the bucket mentality in the marriage, where for 6 months of the year the husband's leading and he's moving in God, and he's has a surmountable prayer life now, where you can tell he's grabbed the horns of the altar, and he's going in prayer, and he's leading his family. And then the wife doesn't like the fact that he is moving forward and that people are noticing him differently in the church. Maybe the pastor's calling his name out a couple times too many, or the women in the church are paying more attention to him now, and they're going to cut that thing down, and they're going to do it by any means necessary. Thank you for the super heart, Tamara Tate. Bless you, dear. They'll do it by any means necessary. And I mean any means necessary. I know women who seduce their own husbands out of insecurity, not out of the fact that they want to seduce their husband in a marital way, because they need to keep him off focus, off kilter, because his growth has two issues for me as an insecure individual. One issue his growth has is that he may leave me. The way he's stepping up and moving forward, he may leave me. So I've got to sabotage this growth that he's having right now, because I need to keep him at the level he's been at. We've been fine there anyway. And two, he may grow so much that I may look at myself and see my insecurities, my lack of spiritual development, my lack of financial. I've had them in the office where one cleaned their credit report up. We taught on credit reports, and one of them took heed of it, cleaned their credit report up. The other spouse didn't. Other spouse started sabotaging his credit, opening up credit cards in his name, ruined his name, everything. And we had another one that I counsel and real life appointments. That's why I say counsel, and I don't give you any more details. Where the spiritual growth was there, and she just started doing some real things to throw him off kilter, to set him back, to cause him to question himself. I mean, Delilah is in marriages as well, people of God. And if you are a Christian or if you read your Bible, you'll know what I'm talking about with me going into any more terms. But I want to read this again to you. Emotionally destructive relationships or marriages is not easily diagnosed in one single situation. He may leave. You better believe it. Absolutely. And not only, Lisa, he's a wonder, he may leave, and he also may leave for somebody less than me, or what we think is less than us, or someone who we think is better than us, which causes us to look at ourselves as less than. Insecurities in marriage are saboteurs, as we'd like to say. So emotionally destructive relationships or marriages is not usually diagnosed by one episode. That's why you can't go and tell your friends when it's one bad thing going on, because that's all they have to work with, and they're going to try to doctor feel you on this one episode. You can't do that. You got to share the good and the not so good with another couple who is able to listen and give advice. Not someone so much as give you medical counsel when we're talking about friends, but friends now who can mentor you, but not so much counsel you. There's a difference. Let me go on. But rather, emotionally destructive relationships are often seen when there are repetitive attitudes. Come on, write it down. Repetitive attitudes and behaviors that result in tearing down someone or inhibiting their growth. When you want to tear them down in any kind of way possible, that will ultimately inhibit their growth. You're going to sabotage their life. You're going to stop their life. And again, I'm going to repeat it again, and I'm going to repeat it again. It can be maternal, mom and dad. It can be siblings, and it can be marital. It can be marital. So for all you who really enjoy marriage counseling and marriage relationships, I'm doing trainings 2 Saturdays a month at the Apostles House in Hartford, Connecticut, and we're training counselors and coaches and those who are called to marriage counselors. There's divorce coaches that are needed now. There's parental that teach parents the simple skills that teach their children on parenting skills. Oh, there's a whole list. You'd be surprised. Addiction coaches. We need all of you. And we need you in our churches. Do not leave the church void of your gift. If you believe that you are called to be a coach or a counselor, don't let anyone stop you. Don't let anyone demean you. Don't let them tell you that that's not this or you need that. Let the Holy Spirit, who gave you this gift, lead you to a place that will pull this gift out of you and be an asset, be a gift to the community, the local outpost of the church that you need to be in and be involved in. I just pray that you're under a leader that appreciates the gifts and understand how important it is to offer this in our churches. We need to have coaches and counselors in our churches. We need to stop bringing spiritual matters to natural people, with their energies and their crystals, and we're going to them because we don't offer it in the church. That could take me left tonight, but I won't go there. So knowing the fact that we all do hurtful things at times, we took all that into consideration, but I'm talking about when it's a repetitive behavior, a repetitive attitude that ultimately results in tearing you down or inhibiting your growth. This behavior is usually accompanied by a lack of awareness, a lack of responsibility, and a lack of change. It's always accompanied by a lack of awareness, a lack of responsibility, and a lack of change. Let's look at another example of a relationship that at first might seem disappointing, but when we look into it a little deeper, we look at the big picture, we clearly see that it is destructive. I'm going to name this assessment Jason and Sarah. Okay? Jason and Sarah. Jason and Sarah's marriage was on shaky ground, and their 3 children were feeling the impact. It's awful when children are involved, when adults act worse than children, and children have to witness that. Breaks my heart. Jason and Sarah's marriage was on shaky ground, and their 3 children were feeling the impact. But they'd begun seeing a marriage counselor, and Sarah hoped things might soon change. There wasn't one big hurt in their relationship like an affair or a beating, but rather an accumulation of many smaller hurts. Like when Jason one time repeatedly took his sister's side in family arguments and sarcastically made fun of Sarah's perspective. He took sides with his sister and then sarcastically made fun of his wife's perspective, making her feel dumb and, played her down and dummied her down. And I tell you all the time, watch for sarcasm. Sarcasm is abuse. It is abuse. Sarcasm is an underhanded slap. You just got slapped, sucker punched, hit in the gut, and you don't realize it because it came out in sarcasm. When I first started as a pastor, I had members that used to be sarcastic to me. And I could feel the hurt in me, but I'm the pastor, so I gotta be tough as nails and have skin thick as a wood table or a vault. So I've got to move on in this. Until after a while, I started saying, wait a minute, not only am I not a punk, I am not gonna keep taking this sarcasm. And then the Holy Spirit began to tell me, you have been abused. This is abusive. Sarcasm is a form of abuse, and you have been abused by these members. And one, I want you to get healed. Two, I want you to study sarcasm. I want you to study silent abuses, and I want you to learn the comebacks, to come back on these behaviors, because sarcasm is abuse. Put it up there. Sarcasm is abuse. It's a non-physical slap. It's a non-physical sucker punch. Y'all know what I'm talking about. All right, so that's what he was doing to her at this point. Now let's keep going. Or the time when Jason continued to allow his parents to enter their home without first calling or knocking, even though Sarah told him how much it bothered her. Now, I know I can hear a lot of women right now saying, oh, you ought to be lucky you just got that man. Or she just complained about everything. She's a little princess. She's lucky to have a family that wants to come over. I can hear all the women, or the lonely women, or the women without boundaries, telling this other woman, Sarah, that her problem is nothing and she should just throw it away. The problem is, it's not just that. Jason keeps giving his parents permission to come over without calling, to come over without knocking, even though it bothers his wife. The problem is, he's already been taking his sister's side. He's already been making fun of Sarah's perspective on things, downplaying her intelligence, making her feel dumb in front of other people. Now he's allowing his very family to come in no matter what his wife feels like, no matter what she thinks about it. So she's feeling powerless. She's feeling as though she does not have a choice in the matter. So you take out these two issues that I've named so far, you may say it's petty, but look how we're building this up. This thing is building. It's not just one thing. But if I went over to my neighbor's house one morning and I said, my husband's family, his mother and father, they come over here whenever they feel like it. They don't call me first. They don't even knock on the door. My house isn't clean. And as a woman, we like our house presentable when people come over. I remember for a while we had a housekeeper coming here, and my husband was ranking me to our spiritual children. He said, could you believe she cleans the house before the housekeeper come? And her husband was, and the wife said, because I would do the same thing. There's just something that a woman is particular about. And, I can't do I don't have time. I hired her because I didn't have time to do the cracks and crevices cleaning. But, getting things in order and moving things out of her way, I felt we could get them done. But can you imagine if in-laws just come over whenever they feel like it, without notice, without knocking and walking in, and I'm already taking this abuse from you that makes me feel like this. And even if she came in with a self-esteem, listen, y'all, relationships can make you be insecure. You can be single and have a security about you and a high self-confidence. One relationship can empty that self-confidence and empty your security blanket and make you feel insecure and lacking great confidence. One relationship can do that to you. So I can be very secure in my position, but in my marriage or in my dating relationship, I am very insecure. So you have to watch in relationships. Why do I feel I'm great at my job? I'm great at the committee that I'm on in church. People overall, 80% like me that I'm connected to. Everybody can't like you, it's just impossible. But why in this relationship you know, I've heard men call women jealous, and the wife wasn't jealous. She was insecure because of an action on the spouse's part. So you can have temporary or limited insecurities. You see them in professional people all the time. Doctors go in and they have the best title in that hospital, the best surgeon, you know, the great autopsy physician. Everyone knows his name when his name is mentioned. But he can go home and be completely insecure as a father and as a husband. Two different relationships. So this woman's insecurity and confidence is in a storm, and it's being weathered by the little things that Jason keeps doing. And he's doing it over time, and it's consistent. So is she just disappointed in this relationship, or is she now leaning, has the scales turned to where it's actually more destructive? Let's read on. Sarah even told him how much it bothered her, or when Jason humiliated her at a family picnic, mocking her and calling her names, and then drove home without her, leaving her stranded. Or when she asked him to trim the bushes and he cut them all down to the stubs, even though they were her favorites. Y'all see where we're going? What did we talk about? We talked about being disappointed, leading to devastation, and then leading to destruction. When Sarah made an argument about this, he told her they were too much work, so I cut them down. Like 1,000 bee stings, Jason's offenses over time poisoned Sarah's joy, broke her heart, and crushed her spirit. She grew tired of asking to be heard, hoping to be valued, wanting to be loved. Floating down the lazy river ride one day. Ever been on a lazy river? You just could sit in a tube and the water just moves with its own flow, and usually in some kind of circular position. They have them at hotels and water parks. This is a lazy river. You just chill on it. It's so nice. So one time they're on vacation together. Sarah couldn't wait to get Jason to go on vacation with her. He agreed. They're floating down the lazy river. The kids chilling, doing their own thing. It's just them two. She says to him, while they're floating down the lazy river, and all 5 of them in their own tubes with other couples, Sarah turned to Jason and smiled. I'm so glad we could come here as a family. As she noticed the waterfall ahead, she said, uh-oh, I hope I don't get stuck under the falls. I hate that. Come on, y'all, you know. Don't put me under the falls. I hate that. Sure enough, Sarah got caught under the falls for 15 long seconds. Petty, right? Buckets of water pummeled her head as she furiously tried to paddle away. Finally, she broke free. Gasping for air, she said, "Jeez, I can't believe my bad luck." Jason just smiled. They continued floating down the river. Rounding the corner again, Sarah saw another waterfall ahead. Oh no, I don't want to get stuck again. But for the second time, Sarah's tube lodged directly under the pounding falls. As she escaped, she glared at Jason and asked, "Are you doing this to me?" "No," he said. "Why would I do that to you?" When Sarah's tube stalled under the waterfall the third time, she put the pieces together. Jason had lodged his big toe under her float and kept her trapped under the falls until he decided to let her go. Furious, she jumped out of the water, out of the tube, screaming, "How could you do that to me? And I can't believe you lied about it." Jason laughed. "Calm down, we on vacation." Can you hear them? Calm down. We're on vacation. We came here to have fun. What's wrong with you? You're crazy. You're so uptight. Don't you think you're overreacting? You get wet at a water park. Can't you have a little fun? If Sarah and Jason discuss this incident in a future counseling session, their counselor, a pastor even, might focus on why this bothered Sarah so much. After all, a couple often teases and frolics around with each other all the time. What was that so offensive to her? Or the counselor might even zero in on Jason's immaturity and help him to see you don't have fun at another person's expense, even if you're at a water park together. You see how it could go? I see somebody up here saying that's horrible, and it absolutely is. But the average person would never see this as horrible. They would see her as ungrateful, not knowing how to have a good time, not enjoying her vacation. You know, we didn't go into much detail in this example, but she could have had issues with water in the past. You know, she just didn't want to get wet. How about that? But at her expense, he felt like, again, demeaning her at his own pleasure, because that's what it was all about here. So the counselor or pastor might also turn to Sarah and encourage her to let it go, lighten up, or forgive her husband and not hold a grudge. Problem solved, marriage better. What do you think? That's right, he said, babe, but it's all a buildup. And that's why telling your friends a story here and there is not a good way to receive your counseling. Because you're telling them when it's bad, you're not telling them when it's good, you're not telling them, you know, the bits and pieces that go on, you're not sharing your feelings, you just vent when you can't take anymore. So you tell them one story, but no one has the full picture. That's why counseling is important. You sit down, you give an overall picture. And, you know, I had clients that came up to me and said, look, this may sound petty to you, and they're in tears, weeping. This may sound petty to you, but I feel like I'm being abused. And ultimately, this is a very subtle, a very silent abuse that has taken place to her life. No matter how petty she is or how much a single woman might say, well, she's lucky to have it. I wish I had a man to get my hair wet in the lazy river. I wish I had a man to go on vacation with me. Blah, blah, blah. Be quiet. Not possible. Listen, problem solved, marriage better, right? Right? Not true. That approach would be like giving antibiotics to a patient who has lung cancer, or an aspirin to someone who is allergic to bee stings. Without a more potent treatment plan, the marriage will die over these little foxes, this little leaven, these little petty, minuscule issues. This could end this marriage. Why? Look at her. I like this comment from Cheryl Wilberg. Mental and emotional guerrilla warfare. And someone else put up here, you want it until you got it. If we had a wide angle lens and we could look at Jason and Sarah's marriage over the years, we see a different picture. The problem with their marriage isn't that Jason is immature or doesn't realize that his playfulness bothers Sarah, or that Sarah is uptight and overreacts to Jason's attempts to have fun. Although all of those may be true, that is not the problem with their marriage. If we could look over their marital history, we'd see that Jason has consistently been indifferent to what bothers Sarah all along, and is sometimes intentionally cruel. Intentionally cruel. In spite of what he says, Sarah has no voice or value to him other than being a mother to his children, a maid for the household chores, and a body for sex. Hey there, Apostle Neil. God bless you. We're going to see you Wednesday night. Revival. I know you're going to bring the heat. We're excited. He has repeatedly demonstrated that Sarah's feelings, needs, thoughts, or desires do not play a significant part in his decision making. Anybody dropping a mic? This is the problem. He may be immature. He may be very insensitive to her feelings. He may not realize that his playfulness bothers her. All those may be contributing factors, but that is not the problem with their marriage. The problem with the marriage is he gives her no voice or value. Other than being a mother to his children, a maid for the household chores, and a body for sex. And listen, I've seen it both ways. I've seen it with women that have done this to men too, that he was nothing but a father to her children, a body for sex for her, and somebody to pay their bills in that house. And she gave him no voice and no value. Thank you, Daphne. Boom. It works both ways. This isn't a gender-specific issue. This is a human issue. This is a human behavior issue. And it works both ways. And the married people that I see on here tonight, that I know at least from the Apostles' house, I want you to begin to find this in you and find this in your marriage, where you give your spouse no voice and no value. And I want you to begin to work on it and do better. All of us. He has repeatedly demonstrated that Sarah's feelings, needs, thoughts, or desires don't even play a significant part in his decision making. Jason does what Jason wants to do, even when it's at Sarah's expense. This is not playful or merely selfish or merely immature. When it happens over and over again, despite someone's repeated protest, it is now abusive and destructive. We've left disappointing. We've lived in devastation. And now we are an outright destructive relationship because everything that's going on is at my expense. Every marriage has the potential to become destructive because we are all naturally selfish and prideful. Every married couple experiences some frustrations, some hurts, unfulfilled expectations, unrealized dreams, and unhappiness throughout their relationship in seasons. But how we respond to those disappointments can mature us and draw us closer to God and to our significant other. Or we can let those disappointments destroy us and our marriage. Welcome, Brad Howard. God bless you. Don't worry about any typing errors. We love you. Glad to see you on. Can you turn that off? But there are marriages like Carol and Sarah's. You got to watch the preceding video for this. In every community, in every church, stop thinking church marriages are perfect. Stop thinking that church marriages have something that other marriages do not. We're all given the same beginning. It's what we add to it after that makes the difference. Definitely God. Definitely the Holy Spirit. Definitely mature, Christian-minded, married believers. These things all set you up for success in failure times. We're all going to have times of failure. We just talked about that. But times of failure does not have to equal failed. You don't have to have an F. Even us who are weighing out our different relationships tonight, you can take a D- relationship and you can bring it up to a B. You don't have to go to failed. But what you have to do is call a thing a thing. Find someone who can listen to you without the defenses so that you can be heard, you can be valued, you can be cherished for what you actually bring to it. Hallelujah. Every marriage has the potential to become destructive. But there are marriages like these two women who have mentioned previously in every community, and they are in our churches. Stop expecting so much from the married people and expecting so much from the married woman and expecting so much from the married man. We still have this human issue that we're learning to submit to a supernatural God to teach us a better way to live and a better way, more abundant way to survive human issues. Amen? Are y'all with me? But they're in our churches, they're in our communities. Perhaps you even know her. Pray for the marriages in your church. Please start there. Pray for the marriages in your family. Stop assuming what dresses up and shows up looking good is that good on the inside. We're going to have a chapter that we're going to go over in this teaching called If These Walls Can Talk. What would the walls of your house say if they could tell a story? Pastor, teacher, evangelist, apostle. Come on, prophets. Come on, single woman, married couple. Come on, young people who's listening in the background to the person that's holding this video up in their home. What would the walls of your house say if they could tell what you experienced there? We put so much expectations on people and then judge them all at the same time. Perhaps you know this Carol or this Sarah or this Jason. Perhaps you sit near her in church and you wonder why she has this attitude or this unfriendliness about her. Perhaps when you mishandle her and you wonder why you get the slap back, or I think the generation says now the clap back that you get from her. Can it be because she's sick and tired of being in a home and a job and now a church where she has no voice and no value? Not even with her sisters or not even with his brothers. Another place that he's expected to serve on or she's expected to serve in, and they have no value and no voice. Maybe you're her. Maybe you're him. Sarah and Carol will be the first to admit they are not perfect wives. But God does not want them to be mocked, sexually humiliated, ignored, verbally battered, lied to, or disrespected for their imperfections. God has much more glorious answers for these men and women and their lives than submit and try harder to be a good wife. That's why we need counselors who are intentional about counseling, coaches who are intentional about coaching, not trying to be in all the lanes. As pastors, we have to sometimes generalize our fields. So I can counsel married couples, but that isn't the place where my passion is. Mine is in character, trauma, personal development. That's why I love it. I have addicts that I'm coaching and counseling through their addictions and their pain. And that part of my ministry can minister to the addict because I haven't walked in an addict's shoes. But the problem with the addict isn't the addiction. If the problem was the addiction, they wouldn't be able to go from cocaine to crack, or from crack to heroin, or heroin to, what is it they give you in the physician's office to get you off of heroin? They give you a prescription drug that's supposed to be equal to the effects. If it was the drug, you wouldn't be able to alter the drug. It's the pain. And that's where my ministry comes in. I counsel pain and trauma and defects in your thinking, unraveling false truths and helping you walk into new truth. Personal development, counselor and coach. That's what I do. Methadone clinics. How can you switch from heroin if you were truly addicted to heroin? If heroin is the problem, how is it now that we can go and transfer you over to methadone? How can the gambler switch to shopping? How can the shopping addict switch to sexual addiction or alcohol addiction? Because it's not the thing we choose to pacify us. It's the pain that we all share on the inside. And the common denominator is pain. So though I'm able to minister to all those groups and genres of human issues, marriage isn't my favorite one to do. And I've got people who have written me references and thank you letters that they can't understand why I say it's not my favorite area, because they feel that I'm very good at it. And I thank God for the Holy Spirit because he ministers through me and he's fantastic at it. I'm his vessel. And I'm not saying that to sound religious at all. But I really like dealing with the traumatic and the pain that people have suffered. And that's the vein I like to be in. And because I know my vein, because I know my lane, I need marriage counselors and I need single counselors and sexual counselors and addiction coach and rehabilitation and divorce healing and premarital counselors. We need those in our churches. Because one woman or one man was not made to minister. We can all operate in a primary care physician role. But at sometimes you have to be sent to a specialist. I can treat your headaches, but if your headaches are consistent and constant, then I have to send you over to a neurologist who specializes, only works and studies and deals with neuro pain. Because my general area has tried everything that it can do, and now I have to refer you out to a specialist in that area. So I don't choose to be a specialist in marriage. I don't choose to be a specialist in addiction. but I can generally help you. And if it does not work to a certain degree, then I send you to a specialist who has expected me to have worked the first few steps with you, and that they know that they're picking you up from a greater place where they are well versed and well studied in. How does that sound? I love what I do. I was given a new life in God. I thank God for it, because I was trying to do what everybody told me to do. I was trying to do what I felt people expected me to do. I was trying to do what all the other apostles and whatnots were doing out there, and I just didn't have a connection to it. It was just like dead. But this here, I can do it with my eyes closed. I can talk it in my sleep. I can do it tired. I can do it awake. I can do it hungry. I can do it on vacation. It's a commission that pours out of me. And I hope that I'm inspiring you to find out what is yours, because you are a helper. You are a people helper. But what area, what lane is the area that God has called you to and qualified you for to help this world? Because the harvest is ours, but the laborers are few, and we just need a few laborers in their right lane so we can make a big difference. What's up there, Tracy Johnson? And Destiny Adgers, I see Joelle. Hello, Stephanie. All right, come on, let's go to the next chapter, because we've got to get off here soon. I don't know how long I've been on here. I lost time. Thank y'all for the hearts that are coming up. Let's talk about, how do you see your marriage? How do you see your marriage, or how do you see your relationship? I'm bowing to you because I'm not going to keep talking at this moment. Thank you very much. If the walls in your home could speak today, what story would they tell about your life or marriage? If the walls in your home could speak today, what story would they tell about your life, or in particular, your marriage? How would they describe your friendship with your husband? How about your sexual relationship? How you handle differences and conflict? How you make up after a fight? How you handle your finances? How you make decisions together? How about your spiritual journey? When it comes to destructive relationships, it can be quite painful and ugly to see something clearly enough to put it into words. Thank you, Anna, for the super heart. I love you, beautiful people. When it comes to destructive relationships and marriages in particular, it can be quite painful and ugly to see something clearly enough to put it into words. You ever been in something so abusive and so destructive that you couldn't even put it into words? Listen to some of the words other people have used to describe the way they feel in their relationships. Y'all ready? Number one. In order to stay married to him or her, I have to stop being me. In order to be in relationship with this person, I have to stop being me. I can't be his wife and me at the same time. It's one or the other. Number two, we get along fine if I never questioned him or her and always went along with everything he or she wanted. Any of these sound familiar? Every ounce of mental and emotional energy I have is needed to survive living in this marriage. He or she is so harsh and negative towards everyone and everything, I feel like I can't breathe sometimes. I don't feel safe. His words, her words, cut me like a knife. He treats me like I'm his enemy. Yet he expects me to want to have sex with him whenever he wants. I don't know how I can keep living like this. The rules never apply to him or her, only to me. Come on, we're learning disappointing from destructive relationships. Conversations never end. He lectures us and lectures us until we give in and see things his or her way. It's always about him, how he feels, what he needs, how he's hurt. There is never any consideration for my feelings, my needs, or my hurts. I exist solely to please this individual, to serve this individual, and to make this individual happy. I'm tired of being his mother. He takes no responsibility for anything, but constantly blames and criticizes me for everything that goes wrong. Nothing is ever his fault. Come on, 2 more. Very draining, someone said. Absolutely. Someone says, oh, wow, I've been there before. Well, glory to God you're not there anymore, Crystal. I feel like I'm treading water, barely keeping afloat, and he keeps knocking me under. Someday I won't be able to come back up. And the last one, I don't know how to survive like this anymore. It's either divorce or suicide. These people did not reach these conclusions only after a single episode of destructive or selfish behavior, but after years of repetitive sinful actions and attitudes that their spouses have refused to change. For some men and women, it takes a long time to even recognize what's happening. Anybody been there? I want to talk for a minute before we disconnect tonight. But has anybody been there where it really took you a long time to recognize what was truly happening? Maybe you noticed it, but I'm talking about an awareness where you recognized it. Because sometimes hope in an individual keeps you in something that's been dead for a very long time. The autopsy of a dead relationship. For some of us, it takes a long time to even recognize what's happening, especially if their family of origin contains similar attitudes and behaviors. Maybe you have had or are experiencing this. Did you hear that last part that was key? It is hard to recognize what's happening in most of us, and that reason is because you were raised in a chaotic childhood. You were raised where one of them maybe was a rolling stone, where the financial situation was never secure, always moving. Things are always being disconnected and turned off, cars being towed, having to change different schools, blase, blase. You were raised in that. So for someone who was raised in that toxic, destructive environment, usually once you get in a relationship and you didn't recognize early on that it was toxic, disappointing, devastating, or destructive, you tend to stay in it longer because you were raised in it. You had no real example of what a healthy, whole, loving partnership and unity of marriage looks like, how it acts out, how it handles those dry seasons, those barren seasons, those broken seasons. You don't know the difference. So you stay in with hope being deferred for years in a relationship like this because you just can't recognize that this is wrong because of what you were raised in. And people die in these relationships and they stay in them forever and ever and ever. And some of them, they get out of it and they're just no good for another relationship. Have you ever said something like, after this, I'm never going to be in a relationship again? And of course, you end up finding yourself in another relationship again. And that may be the good part. But if you go into another relationship still not whole, you're bringing issues already to that place. Because what we want to do, people of God, is we want to be able to recognize toxic people and toxic thoughts and toxic relationships before we commit to them. That's right. Very good. And I was watching this guy on YouTube, and I liked how he and his fiance went to premarital counseling before he gave her the ring. What we do and what we have done is we find our mate, spend a little time with them, ask them to marry us, put a ring on their finger, set the wedding date, have the invitation sent out, or have a good down payment on a reception place, and then say, oh, let's get some premarital counseling. Okay, come on in. It's only 6 weeks. Just come on in for 6 weeks. That's what standardized premarital counseling is, until I wrote the book on rechanging that. I think we should have premarital counseling when we're single. And it's premarital because it's pre-marriage. It doesn't mean that I have already found someone and yes, you can. It doesn't mean that I have found someone and this is before the marriage. No, what you're doing, because you're already engaged, you are pre-wedding counseling. But premarital needs to be before I find someone to marry. I need to be in premarital counseling. I need to understand he is not going to be a knight in shining armor. And guess what? I'm not going to be the princess. How do we work that all out? How do I handle if the expectations that I have and the expectations that I don't know that I have, how do I get those talked about before he or she shows up? There's pre-wedding counseling and then there's premarital counseling. And the difference in the apostles' house is I don't have a spouse, I'm single, but I need to understand marriage pre-marriage. Or I'm getting ready to get married and I need to have some pre-counseling, pre-wedding ceremony. I was so elated the other day. A woman called me 2 weeks ago for counseling, and I got her in 2 weeks, and that's usually at least a month to get in for counseling with me right now. And I got her in 2 weeks, and I said to her, so when's the wedding date? And I think it was something like September 9th or something, she said. And I said, of 2019? She said, yeah, hand over mouth. I said, how am I going to counsel you for the standardized 6 sessions in like 3 or 4 weeks time? It's impossible. But for the first time in my counseling history, which has been not counting, family counseling, when the family, my family used to make me be the counselor because they already saw that gift that was in me that I didn't know was there. All the years that I've been counseling as a minister and pastor, a little over 13 years, this was the first person that came in, sat with me in their first counseling session, had a date set, and came to me and said at the end of the meeting, oh, can I change the date to be married? I said, we're changing it? She said, yeah. I said, absolutely. What's the new date? And she said, to be announced. Hey, some single woman needs to preach that. To be announced. The wedding date has been changed. And start some counseling sessions. Sit with some couples who can tell you can survive an affair. You can survive seasons when one or both of you do not have a job. You can survive seasons when there's sexual issues going on. You can survive seasons when one of you have received a poor diagnosis, but going in with the mindset of, I'm going to find me Prince Charming. He's going to be my knight in shining armor, and I don't have to be a princess. I'm just waiting for him to come and pick me up off my feet. Girl, they show up without horses today. They show up without their nightwear today. What you want is someone who, I put a post up today, who not only opens your doors, but opens their Bible. You want someone who has a relationship that they are consistently developing over time with our greater power, Jesus Christ, Lord and God over the universe. Not only opens my doors, but opens his word. That's what you want. You want someone that has some values. You want someone who has some values. Absolutely. Very good. Good. I'm trying to read your comments here. Very good. It's the way it is. And it's funny because when I meet, they really aren't convinced of really what their part is in it. They just feel that, we've been told what he has to show up as. And once he shows up as that, the rest is just going to happen. I don't have to do anything, expect anything. Outside of having sex, most women don't think they have to do anything. And for some, maybe they make it a 2 steps, having sex and cook. Maybe some make it a step 3, have sex, cook, and take care of the children. But you talk to most women and they really don't have a clue. It's not something that's discussed at the dinner table anymore because we no longer have a dinner table in our homes. We all eat in separate rooms and we text, dinner is ready, and we text, oh, okay, what did you cook? We text back what's on the menu, and then we decide if we want to come down and eat it all, and we may not see each other until the next morning. Single people, for those that are especially in different churches on here, Find out a way to open up some premarital training in your churches. There's a lot of things single people could be learning right now than how to find the next mate. Let's go. So most of these people did not reach their conclusions after a single episode of destructive or selfish behavior, but after years of repetitive actions and attitudes that their significant others has refused to change. And some of us, it takes a long time to get out of it. And the reason it takes a long time to get out of it is because you have been experienced that in your life, probably from your childhood, so you stay in it longer than most people would. Very good. Beautiful. I love your comments. And other times you just can't put what is happening into words, but you know something's not right because when you're around this other person, your body feels it. Every emotional, psychological issue has a physiological effect. Do y'all hear me? Everything that we encounter emotionally affects us psychologically, works its way through us physiologically. It works its way through our physical. Everything that we deal with, known and unknown, that we deal with psychologically, we have to work out physiological in our body. And I love how the Bible says from the crown of our head to the soles of our feet. Doesn't that make sense? Because that's how we have to work issues through, whether we want to or not. Someone just put up here, honesty is the best policy. And I agree. The issue is most people, when they want to get married, are not honest. And I've met couples who were completely dishonest, 50% dishonest, 80% dishonest, 99% dishonest in premarital counseling. And you know when we found out? When the problems came up in the marriage a year, 6 months, 2 years down the line. They don't usually get much further than that. And they're back in my office. Serious business. But you know something's not right because when you're around this person, your body feels it. Your stomach churns, your teeth grind, your hands clench, your jaw tightens, your head pounds, your legs shake, and your blood pressure rises. You cry, you can't catch your breath, and sometimes you even throw up. Your body is telling you something's wrong. Hello, Chris Baxter. Blessings to you as well. Thank you. I'll receive it. Your body is telling you something is wrong. Very good. Pay attention to what your body is saying. It doesn't necessarily have a voice, but it has a reaction. It has an experience. Pay attention to what your body is telling you. Sometimes seeing and naming what's wrong can be frightening, at least very fearful. Because most time the problem we have with admitting things means we're going to have to deal with it. And that's where the cheese falls off the bread, per se. Someone says, thank you for having this discussion. Thank you for tuning in. Your body is telling you something. So, before that moment of personal honesty, this young woman, we're going to get ready to end here, Sherry had been telling herself a lie. She was telling herself that things in her marriage weren't that bad, that it was her problem, that she was overreacting or being too sensitive to what her husband was doing and saying. But once she spoke out loud what was happening at home, she clearly saw the destruction in her marriage. How many of y'all talk to yourself? I know I do. Sometimes I get in that car, and it's not always to myself. Sometimes it's really to the Holy Spirit. All right, Holy Spirit, we got to have a talk because I'm bugging, somebody bugging. We need to get the bug out. I need to talk this thing out. There's nothing wrong with talking to yourself. As they say, it's when you answer yourself back that becomes a problem. Absolutely. Thank you, Karen Knight. God bless you. I know I'm coming your way in November, I believe, to your event. Make sure we post that flyer up. Glory to God. All right. She was telling herself that things weren't bad, that it was just her problem, that she was overreacting or being too sensitive to what was going on in her marriage. But once she was able to speak it out loud, she was able to clearly see the destruction in her relationship. Once we see something, name it. Even write it down. It's much harder to deny it to ourselves later if we see it written down and we can see a pattern that this has been going on for a long time. Write it down. Journal, 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 journal. If you download my app, it comes with a free journal. You don't have to worry about anybody looking in your papers, reading your books, losing your journal. You keep it on your phone. Your phone is locked. The journal is locked. God bless you. So once you see something, write it down. And then maybe you may have to go back to name it if you can't name it at the time. But it's much harder to deny something and how long something has been going on if it's written down with a date. Unless you can call your attention to what passes before your eyes, you simply won't see it. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? Unless you call yourself to attention to what passes before your eyes, you simply won't see it. You have to say the words and describe what you're seeing in order to believe it. That's some good stuff right there. You have to call your attention to what passes before your eyes. If you don't, you can refuse to see it. You have to say what you're seeing. If you want a successful long-term marriage or are going to put the effort into attempting to change an unhappy or destructive relationship, you must start by naming what you see correctly. There's a beginning in this, and you have to start by naming what you see. First, write what you see, and then you can go in and start naming what you see. But that is the beginning point if you want to be in a successful long-term relationship or marriage. In the Bible, which is my reference point, I don't know who else may be on here tonight. I know Periscope gets very different people on there. You may not be a believer in Jesus Christ. And this isn't the broadcast to force it on you. But the Bible, my reference point in Matthew 6:22 says, if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Do you know what that means? If you know what you see and you can name what you see, you will be healthy. But if you see things and you deny them, or you stay in a place of unconscious denial of it, your eye won't be healthy. I can watch what I want to watch on TV, read what I want to read, experience what I want to experience, and still think that the rest of my body is going to be healthy. It is not. And you will not be. You have to know what you see, write it down, and name it so that you can now be responsible, realizing that you're not powerless, realizing that you do have a choice, and begin to take the steps necessary to correct disappointing relationships, to quickly do some 911 intervention on devastating relationships, and maybe even get out of some destructive relationships. It's crucial to your well-being as well as to your family's future for you to open your eyes now in order to see clearly where you are if you want to change where you are going in the future. It's crucial to your well-being as well as those connected with you, connected to you, for you to open your eyes. I want you to write that one down tonight. It is crucial to my well-being as well as those who are connected with me for me to open my eyes right now in order to see clearly where I am and if I want to change it, because it's going to affect where I'm going in the future. This is my end point, because if I go any further, it's going to be the point where we take the assessment to find out, am I in an emotionally destructive relationship? And let's see, it's 9:39. Again, I have no idea what time I got on here tonight. Does anybody have a clue what time we came on? Because I don't like to stay up here too long at one time, because it makes a big difference in our mind, how much information we hear at a time, how much we're able to process at a time. It just says 1 hour on my Facebook page, but I don't know what time. It could be over an hour. It doesn't go specifics. So we're going to get ready to wrap it up. But what I will do is give you a little teaser until we meet again the end of this week. Are you in an emotionally destructive relationship or marriage? A couple of things we already went through tonight. Are you being called names such as stupid or worthless? Or are you being used with sexually degrading terms? Does your significant other mock and belittle you? Does your significant other tell you no one else would ever want you as a partner? Does your significant other pressure you to do things that you don't want to do? Does your significant other threaten to leave you and take the children? These are destructive relationships. It was around 8:20. Okay, yeah, so we got to get off. Does your spouse use the Bible to criticize you or to get you to do what they want you to do? You got to watch those, boy. The enemy will use the very word of God that's there to bless you, and they will manipulate that word against you. Such questions such as, does your spouse or significant other tell you who you can have as friends? Do they dictate how often you can see, talk with family of origin? Does your significant other undermine you with your children? Does your significant other speak poorly about you to the children? And it goes on and on and on. It goes up to 61 self-assessment questions to find out if you are in a destructive relationship or not. So it's important to get to know. And if you want that, you can inbox me, and we can do that on the side outside of this broadcast. And the email address is info, like information, info@SuzanneMHoward.com. I know someone will post it for me on Periscope and Facebook. info@SuzanneMHoward.com. And you can put in the subject line, I'd like to take the assessment. And if you want to write something in the body, you can. Otherwise, just give us a few days to respond, and we will respond with a link for the assessment. And you can take it and then maybe send it back in to me or call and make a free session. 30-minute sessions, always free for first timers, and we can quickly go on it and tell you what category that you fall in. But they're posting the email now. Thank you very much, Ebony, on Periscope. I don't see anyone on Facebook posting it, but it's info, like information, info@SuzanneMHoward.com. Just put in the subject line, I'd like to take the assessment. Thank you, Minister Kareem. And then we'll go from there. But that's it for tonight. Got to go. I hope you go back and replay it. Most importantly, I hope that you go share it on your page, inbox someone privately that you may know and you may be very concerned with. Maybe you're feeling like they're in a destructive relationship, or all of the disappointments that they are going through right now in their disappointments, that eventually this marriage is going to end over these little things, and you're concerned about it. And you don't want to call them out or embarrass them on their timeline, so you just inbox it on your messenger and say, hey, I'm getting blessed by this, thought I'd share it with you, and tell them that it's going to go on for a few weeks, and the broadcast is once a week, and I pray that it's a blessing to you, or whatever terminology you use. But sometimes you got to be very gentle with people, because we're always defensive in areas that we're already feeling guilty of. Most people know when they're in a bad situation, and you can always know, because when you tap it or touch it, you get a bad response back from them. They're very protective because they're already feeling some guilt or shame about it. So for those, don't post it on their timeline, just send it in their inbox. But for you, post it on your page and tell someone, I hope that if you are in a relationship, that you join this series with us to help you get a better understanding and how to save your relationship before it gets to the destructive point. Absolutely, Melissa. She said, replay, #replay. I love you all. Have a wonderful service tomorrow, wherever you go in fellowship. I pray that tonight that you had a come up game, that you had an upgrade in your development, in your spiritual development, and that you can make decisions. If you're a counselor or a coach, or right now, it's me standing in the need of some development in my relationship. All right, let's go. Let's affirm and let's prophesy. I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. God bless you all, and have a very good supernatural night. God bless you.